In the early fall of 2013, the city of Milwaukee was settling into the quiet rhythm that precedes winter. The Lake Michigan wind turned sharp, and yellowing leaves clung desperately to tree limbs across the city's downtown. Beneath the facade of routine urban life, a sinister mystery was about to unfold, one that would grip the community, confound investigators, and leave a young woman's loved ones searching for answers. Kelly Dwyer was 27 years old, bright, artistic, and known for her warmth and energy. She worked in retail and dabbled in modeling. By most accounts, she was doing well, holding on to her independence in a city that was just the right size to dream in. But on the night of October 10th, Kelly vanished. And the only person who seemed to know anything wasn't talking. Her disappearance didn't immediately make headlines. Like many young adults, Kelly had a social life that was fast-moving and free-spirited. When she didn't show up for work the next day, her coworkers grew concerned. When her phone stopped ringing and messages went unanswered, the concern deepened. It wasn't like her to fall off the grid. Her friends described her as reliable, always texting back, always reachable. The silence wasn't just loud, it was screaming. Investigators soon discovered that Kelly had spent the evening of October 10th with a man she had been casually dating, a 38-year-old gym owner and DJ named Kris Zocco. To some, he was charming, to others, arrogant. But what nobody knew that night was that Kelly's visit to Zocco's apartment would be the last time anyone saw her alive. Security footage from her apartment building showed Kelly leaving around 9:30 p.m., dressed casually, clutching her phone. Later, a camera from Zocco's apartment complex would catch her arriving just after 10 p.m. After that, she vanished without a trace. Police questioned Zocco almost immediately. He admitted she had been there, claimed they drank wine, had sex, and fell asleep. According to him, Kelly woke up before he did, left his apartment early in the morning, and never returned. It was a statement that sounded too convenient, too clean. Detectives pressed for more details. Did she seem upset? Was there an argument? Did she say where she was going? Zocco's answers were vague, rehearsed, and frustrating. He stuck to his story. She left and he never saw her again. But investigators weren't convinced. As they dug deeper into Zocco's past, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. One that painted a portrait of control, deceit, and violence. Zocco had a history of manipulative behavior. Previous partners described him as possessive, emotionally abusive, and prone to aggression when under the influence. The case took a darker turn when officers searched Zocco's apartment. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, no broken furniture, no torn fabric. But something felt off. His mattress was freshly flipped. A rug had been recently steam cleaned. Surveillance footage from the parking lot showed Zocco making multiple trips to his car the morning after Kelly's disappearance, carrying bags, looking nervous. Despite the red flags, there was still no body, no physical evidence, and no confession. For weeks, the investigation stalled. Flyers were posted. Volunteers searched local parks and wooded areas. Kelly's family made tearful pleas on the news, but still nothing. Then came the break police didn't expect. During a separate investigation into Zocco for drug-related offenses, authorities found a hard drive in his home. It contained disturbing videos, some featuring unconscious women, others documenting sexual encounters that raised serious consent concerns. The content didn't directly link to Kelly's case, but it painted a chilling picture of a man with a deep capacity for coercion and secrecy. And he was convicted for just that. Still, the clock was ticking. Days turned into weeks, then months. It would take nearly 2 years before the answers Kelly's loved ones desperately sought would finally surface. By the fall of 2015, nearly 2 years after Kelly Dwyer vanished into the Milwaukee night, the city had moved on, but her family hadn't. Her mother, Maureen, refused to give up. Somewhere, she believed, Kelly was waiting to be found. But with no arrest and no body, even those close to the case began to fear the worst, that Kelly's disappearance would become another cold case, swallowed by silence. Then, in May of 2015, a group of highway workers clearing brush off the side of County Road LL in Jefferson County nearly 45 miles west of Milwaukee, stumbled upon something strange. It was a shallow grave partially eroded by rain and time. Inside, wrapped in a tangle of decaying clothing and roots, were human remains. The location wasn't random. It was remote, thick with undergrowth, and out of view from the road. Exactly the kind of place someone would use to hide a secret. The remains were skeletal, exposed to the elements for nearly 600 days. But dental records confirmed what Kelly's family feared most. The body belonged to Kelly Dwyer. The discovery sent shockwaves through the city. Not because her death was surprising, but because it had taken so long. Investigators knew from the start that Kelly hadn't just disappeared. They had suspected foul play, they had suspected Kris Zocco. Now they had a body, and the pieces were beginning to fall into place. The medical examiner couldn't determine an exact cause of death. The decomposition was too advanced. But there were no signs Kelly had died naturally. Her placement in a hidden grave, miles from where she was last seen, spoke volumes. It wasn't a mistake. It was a cover-up. Investigators returned their full focus to Zocco. They retraced his steps the morning after Kelly vanished. Traffic camera footage placed him on the freeway heading west, toward the same general area where her body was eventually found. Phone records revealed a gap in his location data during the same time. A search of his bank activity showed that he purchased cleaning supplies that very morning. And most damning of all, his internet history revealed late-night searches for terms like how to dispose of a body and how long before a body starts to smell. But Zocco wasn't in custody. He was already serving a lengthy prison sentence, not for Kelly's murder, but for the charges stemming from the disturbing videos found on his hard drive during the earlier investigation. Child pornography, drug possession, illegal surveillance. His sentence totaled nearly 2 decades. Still, Kelly's family wanted more. They didn't just want Zocco behind bars. They wanted him held accountable for murder. In 2019, 6 years after Kelly disappeared, prosecutors announced charges against Kris Zocco for reckless homicide and hiding a corpse. They couldn't prove premeditation. There was no confession, no witnesses, and no confirmed cause of death. But the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. The timing, the lies, the cleanup, the grave in the woods. Zocco pleaded not guilty. At trial, prosecutors argued that Zocco had drugged Kelly, as he had done to others before, and that she died, whether from an overdose, trauma, or asphyxiation, in his apartment. Rather than call 911, he panicked. He cleaned up, wrapped her body, loaded it into his car, and drove west, far enough to make it hard to trace. The defense claimed there was no proof Kelly had died in Zocco's apartment. No DNA, no blood, no witnesses. They suggested Kelly's death was a tragic accident, and that Zocco was being scapegoated for being weird and disliked. But the jury wasn't swayed. In March 2020, Kris Zocco was found guilty of reckless homicide and hiding a corpse. The courtroom was still. Kris Zocco sat expressionless as the sentence was read aloud. 2 decades for taking a life, on top of the 20 years he was already serving. It was a hollow moment. He was sentenced to an additional 20 years, to be served consecutively with his previous sentence. There was no satisfaction, no redemption. Just a man in shackles and a mother in mourning. For Maureen Dwyer, it wasn't closure. It was something more fragile, justice laced with grief. The truth had finally surfaced, but it couldn't bring Kelly back. What remained was memory and loss. She had waited nearly 7 years for that day. 7 years of missing person flyers, vigils, false hope, and unanswered questions. Her daughter, vibrant, creative, full of life, had been reduced to evidence. Teeth and bone in a wooded ditch, a life erased, then buried. But Maureen never let Kelly become a statistic. She spoke her name often. She reminded people that Kelly was more than just a victim. She was a friend, a daughter, a young woman trying to find her place in the world. The case of Kelly Dwyer is a brutal portrait of how predators hide in plain sight. Kris Zocco wasn't a stranger lurking in the dark. He was someone she trusted, someone she willingly entered an apartment with on a quiet October night. And when things went wrong, he didn't help. He covered it up. He tried to delete her from the world. Zocco's history tells a chilling tale of control, of women lured in by charm and privilege, only to be drugged, recorded, and discarded. The images on his hard drive, the hidden cameras in his bedroom, they weren't accidents. They were patterns. Patterns that escalated. For every Kelly Dwyer, there are others who don't make headlines. Women coerced into silence. Women who survive but live with scars no one can see. And cases like this remind us, it's not enough to punish predators after the fact. The system must learn to see the signs before someone ends up in a shallow grave. In the years since the trial, Maureen has worked to keep Kelly's story alive, not in anger but in advocacy. She's called for better safeguards in dating culture, for stronger legislation around covert drugging, for deeper vetting of predators masquerading as professionals. Kelly's apartment remains empty now. The clubs she used to dance in quieter. The friendships she once lit up, forever dimmed by grief. But her name hasn't disappeared. It's spoken in hushed tones at campus safety seminars, in mothers' prayers, in news reports that refuse to let her legacy fade. Kelly Dwyer didn't choose to be a symbol, but she became one of what happens when power is abused, when secrets fester, when silence protects the wrong people. She was 27 years old, and someone's daughter, and now part of Milwaukee's haunted memory. If this story shook you, you're not alone. These are the cases that rarely end with a clear answer or a clean line between guilt and innocence. They unfold in the gray, where real evil hides not in monsters, but in the familiar. This has been another story from Trace of Evil. Don't forget to subscribe for more cinematic deep dives into the darkest corners of the human mind. And if you knew Kelly, or were moved by her story, share her name, because remembering is resistance. Stay safe, stay aware. Until next time.